Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for my overview of the Superman Unchained Deluxe Edition, the new printing from DC Comics. So, up and away. Can't believe I started it with up and away. But hey, when we're talking about the Man of Steel, what else am I gonna say? Let's get started. No, you gotta say up and away. Speaking of Man of Steel, that's what the series was originally going to be called, but then DC decided to change it to Unchained. Now, this has been previously released before. This is the latest printing, and it is a deluxe edition, meaning that it is just as tall as an omnibus edition. For anybody that's not familiar with these terms, I have done a beginner video explaining the different types of editions that publishers put out. But yes, it is as tall as an omnibus edition. But let's go ahead and bring the focus back to this, because this was previously printed before in the deluxe edition in 2014. And one thing you probably noticed right away is the difference in the logos. That's right, this is the new DC logo. This is the one that they were using during the New 52 era. As a matter of fact, I'm surprised they still left New 52 there, but it looks identical. It's still the same image by Jim Lee and Scott Williams with Alex Sinclair. But that is the only difference, and looking at the spine, the same thing. The DC logo is what's changed. This time around, this book seems a little bit thicker than the original printing. So we'll see what that's about. See if they added any pages or if it's just a paper stock that they're using, a different paper stock. And then the back of the books. This one retailing for $29.99, and this latest printing $49.99. Comics' biggest writer, comics' biggest artist, comics' greatest hero, Unchained at last. Looks like they're just using the same font, the same blurbs here. So nothing outside of the ISBN has changed. And underneath the dust jacket is this old school texture that they would use on their books for like omnis and deluxe editions at DC. But no graphics or anything. It's just Superman Unchained, Snyder, Lee, Williams, Nguyen, and Sinclair, the DC logo down there, and then Superman Unchained. So practically the same thing as here. Not sure if you can... There we go. That's the original printing, except only thing different is the logo has changed. And yes, all of that is embossed. So what we're going to do is open this book up and talk about this. Oh, good catch. Faster than a speeding bullet, baby. That's the last time I use it, sorry. Hanging out with my kids, dad jokes. What was I saying? Oh, yes. We're going to open this up. I'm going to give you the pitch of this particular story, show off the artwork, and of course, do a comparison. And we'll talk about the build. By the way, this happens from time to time, but the dust jacket I ended up with 2 dust jackets. So the printer must have put 2 dust jackets on this one. I always wonder, does that mean that one of the printings went without a dust jacket? Alright, now we can look inside. Alright, so let's go ahead and crack this book open. You have some black end sheets, this picture of Superman by Jim Lee and Scott Williams, and here are your credits. Scott Snyder writing the story, Jim Lee, Dustin Nguyen, Scott Williams are the artists, and Alex Sinclair and John Kelly's are the colorists. Sal Cipriano is the letterer. And we kick it off with issue number 1. Now, each of the covers doesn't have like what you're looking at, but there's only 9 issues collected in here. So let's talk about that. What's collected in this particular version? Well, this collects Superman Unchained 1 through 9, and then material from Superman Unchained Director's Cut. And the book has 352 pages. So we kick it off with issue number 1. Now, it is very important to note that this takes place in the New 52 era of Superman. So he's a little bit younger. He's not with Lois. He doesn't have Jonathan. They don't have a kid. He's a little bit different. Still kind of new at being Superman, but strong enough and smart enough to kind of handle his powers. And that's why his costume looks a little bit different. He doesn't have the underwear on the outside. And is it important to know what he was like in the New 52 era? No, not at all. Not at all. As a matter of fact, this is the kind of story that kind of stands on its own. It's written in a way that it could be read at any time. That's why when I did the Superman reading order, I had a hard time deciding when to exactly read this. But I did put it with the rest of the New 52. Because I think it's very important to read it around that time, mainly because of the way that he looks. Okay. So, what Scott Snyder decided to do with this particular story is introduce a new character. But before we introduce that new character, we have to have a little bit of a flashback to Nagasaki, Japan, in 1945. So, what we're probably going to be looking at here is the Fat Man bomb. And as these kids are outside, they're looking at this, not bird, but it's a plane, and it's dropping a bomb. However, it is just a casing, because revealed inside of this casing is a man, and this man blows up Nagasaki, causing that big explosion. This is after, of course, the events in Hiroshima. So we fast forward to now. So I guess, yes, Scott Snyder's rewriting history, but then again, it's comic book, so it's fictional history, saying that the cause of the bombing in Nagasaki wasn't an actual bomb, a nuclear bomb, but as a matter of fact, it was this man that exploded. And we fast forward to now, present day, and we have Superman that is saving a satellite. So during this particular time, a bunch of satellites have been falling from space. As a matter of fact, this is the 7th satellite to fall from space. Superman doesn't care about why right now. He's more focused on the, I have to save these people, these astronauts that are here. I have to stop this particular satellite in general, because this satellite and what it's carrying could be used as a nuclear weapon if it lands and crashes into a big city. So that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to put a stop to it, and Superman, with all his skills and his might, actually manages to stop the satellite from crashing and blowing up on Earth, saving all the astronauts. So this is when he takes a little bit of a break and decides, okay, now it's time to investigate who is behind these satellite crashes. So he goes to the mall, which is the Metropolis. It's a facility for supervillains. And who are we going to find there? Well, Lex Luthor reading the Iliad. Of course he's reading while everybody else is fighting. But he's not reading. He's doing something else. He's actually building Metropolis out of paper. But Superman confronts him. He's like, okay, why are you knocking down satellites? And Lex Luthor's like, why do you think it's me? I'm in prison, and I am above knocking down satellites. Have you looked into this secret society called the Ascension? And the Ascension is a group of people that are against technology. They want to take technology down, even though they're known as a cyber terrorist group and could be using technology themselves. And Superman's like, that's ridiculous. That's exactly what he says. They're a cyber terrorist group, but there's no way they could take down satellites, so I think it's you. And I love when he just confronts Lex Luthor, because, Lex is like, you do realize there's more villains in the DC universe, even during the New 52 era. So, it's also important to note that during this time that I said that he's not with Lois Lane, not married to her, not even dating her, he is writing for a different newspaper, so it's not the Daily Planet. And he's writing an article about these satellites that are falling as Clark Kent, and there's Jimmy Olsen, and Lois calls him up saying, your headline's a little off because Superman managed to save the satellites and not lose one. So he thought he had lost the satellite. And she mentions that this particular satellite is underwater. So of course Superman goes down there to see if he can find any clues as to what's bringing these satellites down. And what he finds down here is a handprint. He finds a handprint on this particular satellite, and it's not his, so he's thinking, okay, somebody with super strength is using it, or taking these satellites down. And he gets attacked by the US government, like a bunch of missiles from a submarine go and attack him, and Superman now realizes that this might be some secret cover-up by the government, and now that I know that there's someone else out there that could bring down these satellites with my strength, they're going to be attacking me, and that's exactly what's happening. And of course, all of them led by General Lane, and that is Lois Lane's dad. So what is revealed at the end is that the U.S. government and the military has had their own Superman, or like General Lane likes to call him, the real Superman. He's been working with the U.S. government, or for the U.S. government, for 75 years. And this gentleman is known as Wraith. So that's what you do the equation, and you're like, oh, it was this guy that did it. Oh man, that's awful. And is he going to be a friend or an enemy to Superman? Then each of these issues has a little bit of an epilogue or a little backstory drawn by Dustin Nguyen. This one, for example, reveals a mystery of somebody that these fishermen kind of brought up on a boat, and his mouth has been sewn together, his eyes have been burnt out, and when his mouth is cut open so he can talk, he says, "Get me to Lois Lane." And that's another mystery. So you have the mystery as to who this Wraith is, who's bringing down the satellites, who wants to depower the world of technology, and who that man that was caught on this on a boat with a bunch of fish is asking for Lois Lane. So you get the sense that somebody wants to take down technology, because Superman has to fight down this robot because he goes to Dubai where the robot's trying to knock down a tower, and he finally finds out through the help of Batman that it is somebody with super strength that has his abilities but could be stronger than Superman. Now this is when he goes and faces the U.S. military, and General Lane decides to attack him. And one of these attacks, one of these weapons, just makes his powers go haywire. So the U.S. government immediately thinks that they're being attacked by him, and that's when he gets to meet Wraith. So Wraith steps in and says that's enough. He helps Superman. Now, that's the pitch. It's only 9 issues, and it's got beautiful artwork by Jim Lee. In here, you're going to see them working together. They might fight, from time to time. And then you get to see what ends up happening to Wraith, and what exactly is Lex Luthor playing at. And did the Ascension have anything to do with this particular story? Or if it's all just pure coincidence. But then again, it's comics. Is anything really pure coincidence? And there's a freaking awesome moment that I want people to be surprised if you haven't read it. With Lois Lane, I think it's one of the best Lois Lane moments in any comics, and it has something to do with a plane and Lois Lane, and that's all I will say about that. A little bit of flashbacks here, too, done by Dustin Nguyen, talking about his life with Lana in Smallville, and bringing it all together, because, of course, all these flashbacks, much like Scott Snyder's run in Batman, do have an effect in his present day. So let's look at the extras, because there's a ton. And I'm not kidding, this much of the book is extras. So we're looking at variant covers here. We're not going to look through all of them, but we're going to look through some. And then we're going to see what the director's cut is that they added, or material from the director's cut that they added here. For a 9-issue series, this had a lot. So this is the director's cut, and what it is the script, with that picture by Jim Lee in the background. And then you have some penciled pages by Jim Lee. My God, this guy. Still one of the greatest artists out there. Because this is after he did For Tomorrow. This is after he did Batman Hush. So from time to time, I get excited whenever he draws internal issues. Now he's president of DC Comics. Who knows if he'll go back and draw something internally. But oh my gosh, I would love it. And then the bio on the creators. Now let's take a look at the build of the book. 352 pages. It is glued binding. And the paper stock they're using for this book is, that I'm just going to call it satin. It's a satin paper stock that they've been using for their Omnis and Deluxe editions. And there is gutter loss. It's not too much, but there is some times that you're going to be holding it down to read some of the caption boxes that are sometimes close to the gutter. Like over here, just to kind of give you an example. And the same thing happens from time to time in sewn binding, so it's not just exclusive to glued binding that you have to do this. And it's either DC or Marvel or Image or Dark Horse or Boom or vault. It doesn't matter. You know, sometimes you just have to do it, and it's kind of case by case, and that's why I love doing overviews of books for people. So yeah, just holding it down. But you know what? The original printing had that issue. As a matter of fact, let's do a quick comparison to the original printing. So you have the black end sheets and the Superman picture right there. Now, the original printing did have this thick, glossy paper stock, whereas the new printing, like I said, has this almost satin feel, not quite semi-gloss. The art looking just a little bit more vibrant in the original printing than the new printing. But I mean, very, very minor difference. Nothing too big. But like I mentioned, the original printing also had glued binding. So I was hoping they would fix that in the new printing. Man, can you draw some Batman? Here, let's actually do a quick comparison in the way they lay over. So again, gutter loss is back because they're using that glued binding. So you do get some of the artwork loss. Honestly, it's about the same. And there's a lot of spread pages through this particular book. Whether you're looking towards the beginning, it's such an awesome page, or the middle, or towards the end. There's a lot of spread pages. So you're going to have to hold it down a little bit if you want to see the whole thing. And as far as the extras, because I'm sure people were wondering, nothing has been added. It's exactly the same thing. It's just a different paper stock that is making it a little bit thicker than the original printing. The different paper stock they're using. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this deluxe edition, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build, and of course comparison to the original printing. Let me know in the comments down below if you already have this, if you had it in trade paperback, if you're hoping one day we'll get an absolute edition of this particular story because it is Jim Lee. Or if you've never read this and you're going into this completely blind, you've never even heard about this particular story. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.